woman-owned or youth-owned that are dealing in anything green. So they could be in renewable energy, they could be in plastic recycling, they could be in biodiversity conservation like agroforestry, beekeeping.
According to Financial Capability Survey 2020 report, 43.9% of the adults save for consumption and 21.7% save for school fees. Therefore, the Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Service, together with other participating financial institutions, have come up with a campaign dubbed "Anyone Can Start Small, Grow Big," aimed at spearheading saving culture in Uganda. They say that 50% of Ugandans are saving and 43% are saving using boxes, which they say should be formally transformed.
So if we look at the capability survey, and they are telling us that 43% of Ugandans are using boxes, the banks can't sit back and relax. The only thing they can come up with is, how do we get these savers in boxes to get banked? How do we come up with a product that can link the informal sector into the formal financial institution? So it takes us back to the spirit of collaboration.
In this campaign, they delivered a piggy bank to every financial institution to collect resources, and this money will be used to sponsor a successful applicant whose core value is sustaining the environment through his or her services and products.
Different institutions can give a different amount of money. We've got organizations that have given a 1.5, 1.7, 2.2. So it is up to the organization.
Banks historically, we've tended to do products from our boardrooms without knowing out there what is out there. Today the banks are going out. The reality is that today's younger people tend to prefer having their e-money easily accessed at any one time and everywhere when they want to use it, because of the different platforms available for them to use their money. So it is something that is being put together now. As you can see, the central bank is also regulating, for example, the telecos that are in financial services. The commercial banks are also building what you'd call services that can allow you to have access to your money.
In 2020, COVID-19 FinScope report, which identifies and describes financial service needs and the gaps in the financial service provision, showed that 57% of Ugandans would not be able to sustain their lifestyle after just one day of lockdown, and that 81% would not be able to sustain it after 15 days. This lack of financial preparedness is partly because of poor saving culture. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, today being World Food Safety Day, let's look at their deliberations. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry, as well as Fisheries, has emphasized the need for developing a simplified message, easy to read and comprehend, on food handling protocols per specific value chain from farm to fork, as food and safety has not only cost Uganda public health, but also a loss in export volumes. This was during the CSOs and farmer stakeholders in value chain meeting to discuss food safety issues as we mark Food International Safety Day. During the gathering, participants emphasized the importance of precise guidelines for each stage of the value chain. Emphasizing proper handling practices, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze stressed the need for collective responsibility in the food safety, calling for collaboration among farmers, processors, distributors, retailers, and consumers. Additionally, he urged district agricultural and veterinary officers to be more proactive in their roles, implying that they should cease negligence.
The thing you need to do is to wake up those people who are there. The mindset is in other things. I don't think the problem is lack of experts, but lack of people who identify the work as critical and agree. Do you need, apart from a vet, who else knows the safety of meat and milk apart from a vet? Every district has a DTO, true or false? What stops them from going on those radios to preach food safety standards? Those DTOs, those production coordinators are appointed not by me, nor by my PS, nor by the president. They are appointed by a group called District Service.
If we are not careful, these neighbors of ours are going to overtake us. And we say that Uganda being landlocked should be an opportunity, not a challenge.
In the spirit of resolving the various challenges, including the proper policy regulation of the agrochemicals, as harmonization between the Ministry of Agriculture and Health, and soon a law will be put in place to govern the agrochemicals industry.
There was a bit of a fight between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health on who should regulate the parasites, on who should be responsible for food safety. We now harmonize it. I sat with my sister, Honorable Ruth Chen. We harmonized as leaders, and we agreed that the health sector and its agencies get responsible for regulating human medicine and the related inputs like cosmetics, human vaccines, and the related technological devices for those. And then we said agrochemicals, parasites, vaccines, everything falling on the same body, isn't it? We handle it under agriculture through a new authority.
However, will the extension workers receive an extension of their grants? Farmers have shared instances where they have encountered with extension workers who claim to have stopped their activities due to lack of payment.
We met with all the DPOs of the central region, and I had two questions I asked them. Why really you were given an increment? Of course, we have information. Yes, salary. We know their salary, and we asked them, why did you all of a sudden stop working? We are not facilitated. Yes, they were open. We are not facilitated. When you go, I have a small budget. When I come on the ground, your farmers need facilitation. Yes, the mindset of farmers, if you want them gathered to give them information, they will need facilitation. If you don't have it, you just teach the tables around and the desks. So it means you have to do what? You have to look for facilitation. Yeah.
The extension staff are there, but unfortunately, money was removed. Go and ask your MPs. You have people who represent us all. I have nothing to do. There's no money.
There is a commitment to promoting food safety and a collective determination to work together towards the development and implementation of practical and accessible guidelines for the entire food value chain. Now, in relation to this, and today being World Food Safety Day, for established and growing economies, food industry is one of the most critical elements, as over 250 borne diseases threaten the industry and the health of consumers. Jerome Paul Sonko linked up with Agnes Chirabo, the Executive Director of Food Rights Alliance, to shed light on what's at stake.
Very warm good evening and many thanks for joining us here on Business Today. Thank you very much, Ron and Ahabwe, for those particular stories that you've so far aired for us this evening. But well, besides that, today the President has been addressing the country in relation to the State of the Nation address, and of course, when you look back at what the President has identified as well, agriculture is one of the key aspects of what we are going to be focusing on in the next financial year. But well, besides that, today is the World Food Safety Day, and of course, this is where our conversation this evening is going to be rotating around. But as a conversation, you definitely know cannot be alone. Cannot be driven by one individual rather, and joining me is Miss Fiona Agnes Chirabo, who is coming in from the Food Alliance. Many thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for hosting me, and good evening, viewers.
Okay, when you come to think of it, first of all, the Food Alliance, what is your driving point as the organization?
Well, at Food Rights Alliance, we are driven by a vision of living in a world free from hunger and malnutrition. And every day we wake up to toil to promote sustainable consumption and access to safe, healthy, and nutritious diets for all. That is what we labor on, that everybody could at least have access to that kind of food, safe, healthy, and nutritious, regardless of whether you're in prison or where or at school. Like
really
the school, you must have access and you consume safe, healthy, and nutritious food.
Now, let's look at the World Safety Day. Why do we have a day like this one, and what brings about its celebration annually?
On June 7th every year, according to the UN, we commemorate, we are not even celebrating. We commemorate the day, the World Day on Food Safety. And this is a day that was put aside for every stakeholder to create a platform of reflection on our actions, our interventions, our investments, confess our sins, commit to do better on ensuring that every time our hands touch food, we maintain its quality and we maintain its safety to the next consumer. So this is how special this day is, because it goes into the detail of what have you eaten, how safe is it, and what was the quality of what you have eaten, not just filling your stomach with nonsense and everything, but the safety and the quality of what you have eaten.
Okay, looking at this year's theme, what is it all about in regards to food safety awareness and food safety in general?
The theme this year is about food standards is healthy.
Okay.
Yes, meaning that the moment we negate the standards and the quality and safety of food, then you should forget anything close to being healthy. And we are just promoting a very big burden to our already struggling health sector. So in a way, the theme implies that if only we could handle the food standards, the quality, and the safety, few of us would not visit the hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Looking at promoting food safety in the country, what are some of those key points of intervention that the government needs to at least prioritize? Then also, what should be done by us, the Ugandans?
Besides what you have done, you need to understand when does food get contaminated. Food gets contaminated throughout the journey it moves. Before food was produced, during the production, the post-harvest handling, the way food is stored, including in our houses. Many of us construct houses, and on our house plans, there is no designated space for keeping food. And some of us even pretend that we are putting it in the refrigerator or the deep freezers. Of course, they do not meet the minimum standards to keep that food healthy. Sometimes the food is lucky. It moves that whole journey when it is still safe. But many of us in our culture, we wash our hands after we have finished eating. So you contaminate it as you're taking it into the mouth. Do you realize that there are quite so many activities that take place before food is produced and until food is consumed? And I wish to bring it closer to the viewers. Just to look at the chemicals that are being used, including the fertilizer, the herbicides that are being used at the farm. Look at the vaccines, the hormone, the growth hormones, the antibiotics, and all of those drugs that are injected in our chicken, in our animals, our dairy animals, our goats, and everything. When you come to consume a piece of chicken or a piece of meat, you're consuming a considerable sum of the residues of that. Just to look at the vegetables in the market, some tomatoes vividly have traces of chemicals, you see? Just look at the roadside in every small trading center. There is a food being prepared and served at around 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Nobody knows where this food was cooked from. Everybody's rolling chapatis. Nobody knows the oil that is being used. In every trading center, people are having flampens, these local flampens. They are making chips and chicken. When you look at the food, it is very enticing. The oil that they are using. Just to think about the ground nuts grinding in the marketplaces. We all know that those people change their motors and blades like 3 times a week. You ask yourself, where did those blades go? You took them along. So when they are measuring for you a kilogram of groundnut paste, part of it, like a good fraction, is the metal from the mortar. So just imagine all of those practices that are happening around food and they are contaminating our food. Just to remind people that last week, Southern Sudan until today impounded trucks that were carrying maize flour, this time not grain, maize flour. And I had a trader confessing that people add dust, wood dust in bushela. You know, we do all sorts of things to our food. So if you're asking me what needs to be done, we need to stop these criminal activities. I'm telling you, if you engage in an activity that jeopardizes somebody's life, that jeopardizes somebody's livelihoods, can you imagine the people whose trucks and that whole consignment of maize flour that is stuck in Nemole, that is livelihoods. Many of them borrowed the money. Okay. They borrowed the money. So while you're borrowing the money, you used your house as collateral. So you're going to lose your entitlements. It's about people's lives. So we should stop these criminal activities. And yesterday. But then too, I'm happy that the president is saying the biggest focus is going to be on agriculture next financial year. But then he's also aware that the whole agro-industrialization program was allocated less than 3%. So I'm waiting to see the magic that is going to do without allocating substantial money to the sector. But besides that, we know that the extension workers, for instance, play a critical role in helping farmers produce right, manage our food right. And how do they do that? By reaching out where they are doing their production. Next financial year, I assure the president, the extension workers are not going to be able to move an inch because the extension grant, a vote that was facilitating extension workers with the fuel, riding gears and the like to go and reach out to the farmers was removed, Your Excellency. But secondly, the post-mortem institution, like the ministers called it today, the National Bureau of Standards, that is supposed to check whether you did it right. The population is bulging, the activities are bulging, we are industrializing, we are urbanizing, we have porous borders, and so on and so forth. But every financial year, the budgetary allocation to the Bureau of Standards is reducing. Viewers, stop crying out to the National Bureau of Standards. They do not have capacity. Okay. They don't have capacity. They are not being facilitated. And let me tell you, for that bureau to measure up to the level of liberalization and activity in the economy, you know, we need its presence in every city. You get? With the numerical strength of the technical staff, but also with the technology that responds to the current challenges. They can't afford with that money. So I'm really looking forward to the magic, and maybe our president is going to be a magician when it comes to agriculture because they didn't put their money. So, I mean, how is business going to happen? Yes.
Okay, now looking at food security and allocations here and there, food security and safety allocations by the president, not the president, rather by
the budget.
By the budget for the next financial year. You look at the fact that agro-industrialization is one of the key priorities.
Yes.
This is all under food and everything,
yes.
Agriculture and everything.
Agriculture, trade, water, and all of those things.
Now we've had an issue with the extension workers. These are more like the experts that help out with the farmers from different regions. And the issue here is regarding underfunding.
Not underfunding. The vote was completely removed. The underfunding, you're suggesting that it was this big and now it is this. The vote was completely removed.
Actually saying they were giving out some help to them.
But he also confessed that the vote, I asked him about the extension grant, he said it is so sad, but it was removed. So it was removed, it is at zero.
Okay.
It is at zero. That means the actors in the production chain are going to do according to their capacities and their wish. So we are missing a critical function that is supposed to guarantee this country that at least the farmers are complying, the actors are complying, and at least for one commodity. Let's say maize. Let me tell you, maize was introduced in this economy in the 18th century. Can you imagine up to today we have never learned how to produce quality maize? 2 centuries down, 3 centuries down the road.
Because clearly Kenya is always banning our maize because of the same.
And then Southern Sudan rejected this. The next thing to reject are the pigs and other animals that we are feeding it on. It is very dangerous, by the way, on a serious note, because statistics indicate that the partnership action on aflatoxin control in Africa established that our maize in Uganda had aflatoxins to the tune of 65 parts per billion. And the minimum requirement is 10 parts per billion.
So we've exceeded the bar.
We exceeded, I don't know how many times, but the danger of aflatoxins, for instance, if that maize is rejected in Kenya just as it was, it is not even fit for human consumption. And this is not the first time. During COVID, the Bureau of Standards condemned the food that was being distributed to a tune of over 40%, that it wasn't fit for human consumption. I'm telling you, viewers, if food has been condemned that it is not fit for human consumption, it is not fit for animal feed. Because if you feed the animals on garbage, you're going to eat the animals. So the garbage has only extended the distance, but you will eat it anyway. So the best practice to do if food has been condemned, for instance, in the case of aflatoxins, it can only be incinerated. It cannot be buried, it cannot be poured in the sea, it cannot be fed on animals, it cannot be buried as a fertilizer. The only way we can say that we have gotten rid of that trace of aflatoxin is by incineration. And this is where our worries are. They never incinerated that maize. It means we ate it.
Madam Chirabo, back to the extension workers. What is their future like? If the funding is not there for them, it means most of them will definitely stop doing this work because it is not paying.
But there was the wage bill is there. Okay. Their salaries are there. This is institutionalized corruption.
Okay.
Because if you recruit a staff and you don't facilitate a staff to do the work that is supposed to do, then you have officiated that staff to take a salary for no work. The last time I checked the definition of salary, it's a compensation for the work you have done.
Exactly. You're being paid for the services you're rendering.
Yes. And now here we have a batch of around 3,600 people in this country who we have publicly declared that let them earn a salary for the whole financial year for no work done.
Wow.
And that's the reality. So this is another form of corruption, but this is government-facilitated corruption. If you do not want extension that you re-established the other day, just say you don't want it, then keeping a redundant workforce at the local government.
Okay. Well, besides that, what are your recommendations and call for action in relation to food safety, awareness, and food security in the country?
The first call of action is for every mouth whose eyes are watching me now. Have pleasure in your mouth, but always have safety in your mind.
Okay.
As you enjoy that food, safety should preoccupy your mind and not the pleasure in your mouth. That's 1. 2, let us take full responsibility. Every time your hands touches food, stop thinking that you're doing it for the market, because your relatives and your children are in that same market. Food just makes a round like this, and you never know. The maize you mismanaged is what you had for lunch in the restaurant. So let us take full responsibility. Let us cease being criminals of the day. Let me tell you, some things the law will not be able to do it for us, and I think that was the statement by the minister. The law is not enough. Our government is so narrow and weak to whip everybody wherever you are. But because food safety is about you, it is about life, it is about the lives of your people, I think before we wait on government to enforce and run after us, let us take full responsibility. And I'm assuring you, people are willing to pay for quality. True. They are willing to pay that extra for quality. In the developed countries where there is a lot of compliance, The law followed consumer preference and not the other way around. Here the people are seated quietly. Mutuyambe tusaba government tuyambe. By the time government comes to rescue you, you'll be bedridden. If not that, you'll be dead.
Okay. Oh,
well,
that's a very huge concern, I should say.
Yes, but well, the state remains with a duty.
Okay.
The state remains with a duty, and it must be seen tirelessly and progressively doing what they are supposed to do. There are certain things that are within the hands of the state to do. For instance, the fabrication of the non-food graded processing equipments for food. That one, government, it is in your hands to stop it yesterday, and in any case, the metal fabricators, if they must fabricate, the metal and the entire components that engage in the processing of food should be food graded. Should be food graded, not steel. Government, that one, you don't even need a lot of money. In every market there is leadership, in every community there is leadership. We are over-governed in this country. We have a lot of governance structures. So government, just to say for the sake of reducing the number of cancer cases in this country, no more fabricating. Because these machines are grinding groundnuts in open space. It is not something that happens in hidden places.
Okay.
So government, there are certain things that you can do without even spending an inch.
Okay.
I'm telling you, viewers, if you think keeping quality and safety of our food is expensive, try and book your bed in the Cancer Institute, and you see how cheap it is to treat cancer.
Many thanks for joining us this evening, and it has been a very wonderful conversation to have you. And of course, to our dear viewers, due to the time, you can eagerly see that the conversation was still going on. But of course, we have to take you back to Rona Nahabwe. I don't know whether, Rona, you've had a very good meal for the day, a good and safer meal for the day.
Actually, it is safe and healthy and nutritious.
Healthy and nutritious.
Healthy and nutritious.
Well,
and if it wasn't, it was not food.
Oh, okay.
If it is not safe, it is not food.
All right. If it's not safe, then it's not food. Back to Rona Nahabwe, as I've been having Miss Agnes Chirabo from the Food Rights Alliance, as we were discussing about food safety awareness in the country. Good evening.
Great stuff there, Jean-Paul Sonko. I must admit that must have been the best part of this bulletin. Well, if it's not safe, it's not food, and we are pretty much losing so much away from even the loss in export earnings. There is a loss in public health. You already know the number of people that are admitted yearly. About 1.3 million people are admitted due to cancer, due to food-borne diseases. You can imagine that. But we still have more for business today, and thank you so much, Agnes Chirabo from Food Alliance, for sparing time and your expertise and giving us that insightful conversation. Now, more for business today. We still have one more story, and in this regard, we're looking at Senegal's deadly protests. Now, there is a growing frustration among young residents of Senegal as the impact of recent events has stirred political tensions. Many young residents in cities across Senegal are feeling socio-economically marginalized, with a deepening sense of disillusionment towards government. Here's a look at the story.
Young people in Senegal are becoming more and more irate, and the effects of the recent events have heightened political tensions. These residents believe government, led by aging and distant leaders, has been slow to address the economic consequences of the pandemic and the impact of the war in Ukraine. Sonko, a former tax inspector and whistleblower, has become a well-known person in the middle of this sentiment, attracting attention of disgruntled voters and earning support from the socio-economically underprivileged. Recently, Sonko has become instrumental in fueling protests, calling on citizens to take to the streets. Just last month, he led a procession from Zinchiko to Dhaka, encouraging protesters to join him. While it remains unclear if police plan to detain Sonko imminently to begin his prison sentence, such a move is likely to escalate tensions even further. Despite the under apparent house arrest, Sonko has advocated for national resistance movement to safeguard civil liberties. Looking ahead, the 2024 election holds significant importance. If Sonko's recent conviction holds, he could join the other opposition leaders such as Sharif Sal and Karim Wade, who are convicted on charges of fraudulent use of funds prior to the 2019 elections and subsequently barred from running. Some commentators speculate that President Sal may grant amnesty to previously disqualified political leaders to divide the opposition vote in the upcoming election. As the 2024 elections approaches, there are concerns that the civil unrest may increase. Pangea Risk, a prominent risk advisory firm, suggested in recent reports that government's efforts to suppress opposition and freedom of expression could escalate tensions. While recent violence has been contained through internet restrictions and a large military presence, widespread instances of unrest are likely in major urban centers if Sonko is physically arrested or if President Sal announces his intention to run for the third term.
Very well. Now that leads us to the end of business today. But before we do that, here's a quick look at what made the top stories.
Today, President Museveni expresses optimism about economic growth as the mineral industry value addition plus the troubled PDM are fronted. Payment wars persist for extension workers. Maif has no answers. And agro-industrial surge points out import substitution strategy.
Well, that's pretty much what we had for you today on Business Today. Thank you for the pleasure of your time and having joined us today. I'm Rona Nahabwe together with Winnie Weinza Nakauchende Sign Language Interpretation. I would like to implore you to watch on our YouTube channel in case you miss any of these stories and follow on our social media platforms for any of these stories or more updates in regards to business. Have a lovely evening.